Hey, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome and the 5 steps that I use to help turn my imposter syndrome into an opportunity to learn and grow more. So if you don't know what imposter syndrome is, it's that feeling you get inside where you don't feel like you're good enough, or you don't feel like your qualifications or your competency are up to scratch. And you begin to question your ability, and you begin to question if you actually belong in that team or in that organization. The feeling of imposter syndrome can be really damaging because what it does is it limits your self-confidence. You may find yourself not putting yourself out there to try new things, or you're worried about what your colleagues will think of you when you speak up. Or you may even shy away from activities which can help propel you forwards in your career because you're always second guessing yourself. And this is really damaging and limiting to your potential. But don't worry, there is light at the end of the tunnel. We can use our imposter syndrome as a way to drive ourselves forwards and break through some of those barriers if we know what to look for. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing the 5 steps that I personally use to help conquer my own imposter syndrome. Okay, so step 1 of the process is to understand that everybody has some level of imposter syndrome. I have spoken to people who on the outside are super confident. You would never think that they feel out of place, but they also feel some level of imposter syndrome. They also have their insecurities inside, but they've learned how to master them. And the first step really is to understand that everybody has it. You're not alone in this, and it's on us to work our way around it. So the second part of this is to understand that imposter syndrome is relative. So the things that I may feel insecure about, or I may feel causes me to be an imposter, may be very different to the rest of my team or anybody else you meet. So just be mindful not to compare yourselves with anybody else who you feel might be doing really well in the area that you're an imposter in, because at the same time, they may be feeling the exact same thing about you. So step number 2 in this process is to understand the source of your imposter syndrome. What you want to do is to sit down and think about all the things that trigger the imposter syndrome inside of you. This could be the types of work that people ask you to do. It can be personality types that you work with. So how you interact with people and what types of people you interact with. It can be different technology domains. Is there a particular technology domain that you're not that confident in and you feel that you don't have the right to be there? So write all of these down. It doesn't matter how many there are, just write them down and begin to rank and prioritize them to how important they are to you, and also how important they are to the job role that you are currently in. So step number 3 in the process is to figure out which one of these triggers of your imposter syndromes is worth working on. Or do we just say, you know what, I accept I'm going to feel like an imposter in that area, but I can live with it. It's impossible to work on everything and all aspects of our imposter syndrome. We can't ever, I believe we can't ever fully get rid of it, but we can learn to embrace it and accept it and use it as a force for change. Step number 4 is doing something about it. We have thought about why we feel imposter syndrome. We've acknowledged that everybody feels it. We've understood when and why we feel the imposter syndrome, and we've tried to prioritize and rank what causes of those imposter syndrome are the most important to us, or the ones that we want to tackle first. So now it's time to actually tackle them head on. And I've split this into 2 high-level ways that I kind of tackle this. And the first one is around a skills gap or a knowledge gap. Let's say I don't know something, but I've identified individuals who are very knowledgeable in that area. The thing to do is to go ahead and talk to them. By talking to them, you can begin to understand how they learn themselves in that particular area. And some proactive things you may be able to do is you may be able to attend some trainings that they're running based on that subject. Or you may want to read some blogs or articles or even books that person has written on that subject to help you skill up. You may want to join a community that they're part of, which discusses the area that you're trying to level up in, or you may just want to be involved in some of the work that they do and help them out and just try and shadow them. This is the knowledge gap is a bit of an easier one because generally you're not trying to copy a style, which I'll talk about in just a second. You're trying to upskill your knowledge in a particular area. And so, there's loads and loads of methods and resources out there to help you do this. But you can use that person as a mentor and as a guide of what does good look like potentially, and how do I reach there? So the next type is the style. So you may really like how somebody presents, or how somebody problem solves, or how they manage customer relationships, or how they lead their team. This is very much a style dynamic, and it's something that you can take inspiration from, but you really need to make it your own. This is very different to the knowledge gap area, which, it's quite clear cut. You either do know something or you don't know something. With the style element, you really need to go ahead and just observe, pick the parts that you do and don't like, understand what works for you, and then implement your own style and see how that works out for you. But again, talk to them. Understand how they built up that style or that skill. Not everyone is born a natural presenter or a natural public speaker. Most people have to put time and effort into developing that onstage charisma and that gravitas that makes a talk really engaging and really captivating for the audience. So ask them, how do they do that? Again, go to some of their talks, go to some of their meetings. Potentially, if you're looking at how someone interacts with a customer or problem solves, shadow them and just try and learn from their style, but then adapt it to make it your own. And the final part of step 4 is to get some perspective. So, as I mentioned right in the beginning of this video, most people, if not everyone, has some level of imposter syndrome. And, talking to someone, just opening up and telling them about it, you may feel a lot better hearing that they also open up and they tell you about their experiences with imposter syndrome. And this helps you to gain some perspective and just, calm yourself down and understand that everybody's going through the same thing. It's just most people don't show it on the outside. The fifth, the final, and the most important step, I feel, is to recognize your progress over time and to celebrate the small wins. It's really important to acknowledge your work and acknowledge your progress, because this is the positive feedback loop which will help to reduce the level of imposter syndrome you have in a particular area. When you look back and you understand how much you've progressed, it's really going to help build your confidence. And this is going to push you and motivate you to try even more challenging things, which again, as part of the feedback loop, it may feel uncomfortable at the time, but when you complete it and you get through it and you look back and you recognize your progress and your achievements, it's going to further build your confidence even more. So use one big win or one even small win to fuel another win along the line. Now, it's important for us not to just do this for ourselves, but for others around us. If you notice someone in your team or someone you've worked with, or even a random stranger that you've come across do a really good job, then make it vocal. Call them out and tell them and let them know. I think you've done a really great job on this. You never know, you could just be helping their imposter syndrome. So there are my 5 steps that I personally use in order to identify, rank, and then act on the sources of my imposter syndrome. And if there's 2 takeaways from this video I'd like to leave you with, here they are. The first one is to have a positive mindset. It's understandable that, the imposter syndrome can throw you off, it can make you feel less confident, but think positively. If there's other people out there that can do it and have done it, then there's no reason that I can't do it if I also put in the hard work. The second point is to take action. If you know you have imposter syndrome, don't sit on it. Take action. Identify and pinpoint the issue. See how you can address it. Get help from a manager or from a friend, and then start taking the steps needed to help reduce that imposter syndrome and rebuild your confidence. So I hope this video was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments below if you have suffered from imposter syndrome and how you got past it. And if you liked this video and it did help you, please do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. In the meantime, go ahead and check out some of my other videos on tech, careers in tech, and general productivity.